the aspect of me that is a mother adds so much benefit in how I see the world, in how I navigate the world, and on and on and on. Part of that is coming from a society where we really struggle to tolerate things that are not the way that we want and expect them to be. But that is where growth happens. That is how connection. Everybody's disconnected. Well, part of why we're disconnected is because we have these patterns and we don't realize that that is showing up in our reality. So that creates opportunity for us to work through various things. Do you struggle with burnout, with trying to find some sort of balance between your business or your career, as well as being a mom? I recently was scrolling through Facebook, and of course my memories popped up, and I realized that it's actually been 10 years since I left the corporate space, and now it's been 10 years of mompreneurhood. Anyway, I don't know what this term is for that, but here we are. It's been a decade and I've learned a lot. Now, before we dive in to this topic, why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, number one, I'm going to bring you a very spiritual perspective. Okay, maybe not super spiritual because some of it is quite just practical, but also I think it's important that we set the context for the reality that we're in, because a lot of people approach work-life balance from the lens of there's something wrong with me and that's why I'm struggling. That's why I'm burnt out. That's why I can't fit in. So I need to fix myself to fit in to this system, to this business or the industry that I'm in, and on and on and on. And I think it's important that we note that if you're listening to this, most likely you're in the West and we do not have a system that is set up for your well-being. I just have to preface everything that I'm about to say with that understanding, because we need to be thinking about this. Number one, how do I survive this, right? How do I exist in the reality that I'm in right now? But also being mindful about how we are structuring our lives, how we're structuring our business, the expectations that we're communicating, so on and so forth. And that from my perspective, we have a responsibility to actually set a new standard for what is going to just be a better option, right? If we create businesses, we do have that power. And I know that's so much responsibility. However, give yourself grace in this, because who you're here to be has never been. What you're here to do probably hasn't been done before in the way that you're going to do it. And so we're all messing this up. We are all trial and erroring our way to find some sense of well-being. Okay. Also known as euphoria, hence the title of this podcast. But I have to preface that because I feel like not enough leaders talk about the fact that you are, a round peg trying to fit into a square hole. Or is it a square peg in a round hole? I don't think it actually matters. The point is that the systems, the structure, the society that we find ourselves in was, number one, for sure, not created with your well-being as a parent in mind, especially if you are a mom. Number two, it also is not structured with the well-being of children either. So really, we are here to set a new precedent. And again, It's not going to be beautiful all the time. Sometimes we're going to be messing it up. And also, we are constantly going to be experiencing the consciousness that exists in society and the projection of that on who we be and how we live our life. So this is why you've got to really build a lot of resiliency, a kick-ass backbone to be able to stand firm in certain decisions that you're making. All right. So with that context, let's dive into a little bit that I've learned over the past decade as a mompreneur. I've run multiple successful businesses up to this point in various ways, in various industries, and I've gone through multiple seasons of motherhood. Now, to give you some context, I also am operating with quite a few privileges. From the beginning, I was operating with a few privileges. Number one, I'm married and have been with my husband since 2009. And we intentionally became parents quite young due to health circumstances. But I married one of the best partners probably in the entire world. Like, he's definitely top 1%, maybe 2% of partners that you could have. And that was why, number one, I locked it down. I locked it down young because I knew I could see just how he was showing up. And also, not to like give him all the credit, because I deserve some credit here too, the way that I've shown up over the years has also given him the space to show up as a certain type of partner. So the two of us, we work together. We see that we are creating the empire that is our family. And we are both from the intent that we're here to support one another in being our best. And ultimately, our focus is on our son and what is actually best for him. And then we mold to him. Full transparency with that. I do think that women by nature, we mold more. The way that I've just kind of noticed, even with having the most amazing partner, what I've noticed is that I tend to seek what is best for him. And then I accommodate my life around him. I build my business really like around him. And my husband, on the other hand, considers him, but leads with what he's going to do. And then, okay, how do we fit in being a parent, right? There's societal issues at play in that. And also, I do think that there is some biological component to this. I'm saying I think. No, I know so much of our personality, so many of our decisions are being influenced by hormones, by the chemicals in our body. And that does have an effect with how we show up in our life and how we create work-life balance. Okay. So I come with that privilege. And also, I do think, I know that in any case, we can find a way. I have clients who are single mothers running multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses. So it can be done. However, how that might look, depending on your circumstances, might be different. So I feel like it's really important to be honest with yourself, to find truth. I know that there's a whole lot going around about be delulu, like be delusional about your vision, but also like be real. You need truth about your capacity, what your circumstances are. Like, don't go building a business as if you have, 80 family members around you and maybe you move to a new area, you have no support system there. Like, don't be that kind of delusional. Okay. You need to start with what is the reality of the circumstances in the season that I'm in right now. So that brings me to my first point, which is really all about recognizing that there is no such thing as a work-life balance. Now, hear me out. Work-life balance doesn't exist. It's a myth, mainly because there's no specific amount of work that you can do mixed with the perfect amount of life that you can do, that if you just do that forever, that will work. No. No. Number one, we're multidimensional beings. The decisions that we make at work affect life, and the life decisions we make also affect our work. So the illusion of compartmentalizing that is infiltrated the business and professional expectations in space is hogwash, especially if you're a woman. Especially if you're a woman. This structure doesn't make sense for a human. It makes sense for robots. Okay? It makes sense for robots, but you have energy. You have an energetic cycle. You have seasons that are seasons of life. So we are here to find harmony. And harmony is not a goal that you can get to. Harmony is being able to recognize your current experience, your current reality, and then bend your energy to work with what reality has presented to you. Because this is a co-creation. Yes, we want to master our reality, but we also have to be humble to reality and work with. Part of why we don't experience the flow is because we can get to most of us come from a domination perspective where we're trying to dominate our life. A lot of this comes from religious influences, from just how we are brought up, that thinking that we are in control and everything becomes about trying to control things. And ultimately, that's what keeps us from flow, from actually being able to co-create in this reality. So your goal is harmony. Your goal is to go with the flow instead of fighting, forcing, etc. Now, to my point with cycles and seasons, especially as a mother, when I embraced becoming we'll call it a work at home mom, because I was staying at home, but also I was running a business. Whenever I made that decision knowing that, number one, I had a toddler. At the time he was 1. He had just turned 1. And I knew that, especially in those early years, every year was looking very different. And for those of you who have children who are older and you've literally seen this, what I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt is the minute that you think that you have a routine that's down and that this is perfect and this works and da-da-da-da-da, your kid's personality changes or their needs change and. So being able to be flexible and being able to not fight that experience is what will give you power to be able to either build your business in a way that works for you or to find support, create support in ways that allow for the evolution of this child. Now, when I'm saying that, I also have to just drop in this seed. I feel like this could be an entire episode, but we live in a society that sees children as, number one, property, as if they belong to a parent, which is no. And number two, that they are like an accessory, like they don't have a voice, like they aren't capable of any kind of thought or decision, when really, even from a young age, within reason, right, they are able to express various desires and needs. And from my perspective, those are just as valid as an adult's needs. And actually, from my perspective, even more valid, right? Because this society tells us that having children is your choice. It's your responsibility. It's just this weight on you as a parent, versus in animistic or shamanic cultures where there's an understanding of reincarnation, that we understand that, sure, it's our responsibility, but it's not just our responsibility as a parent. It's a community. It's a societal need to have children so that we can come back, right? And we are always thinking about prioritizing them because they are the ones who are going to create the experience that we have to come back to, right? How many of us, so many of you are likely millennials, maybe Gen X, maybe even Gen Z, but we are literally seeing the results of previous generations solely focused on what was good for them in that moment, not really thinking about the next generation and how that was going to affect their descendants, right? And so in many ways, what's currently happening is we're seeing the ripple effect of what happens when we are hyper individualistic and when we do not prioritize children, right? If you're a millennial, one of the things that many of us are concerned with right now, if it's you, know that you're not alone. A big concern of ours is, number one, how are we going to care for our parents who likely are not going to be able to care for themselves? Number two, how are we going to take care of children who we want to have a better experience than what we are currently experiencing? And then also ourselves, trying to find a way to ensure that we are able to retire at some point, if that's something that you want, able to take care of yourself in the old age so that your children aren't overburdened with, 10, 20 years of your care and on and on and on. And to me, the solution to that is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, especially women in entrepreneurship. But again, like I said, that's another conversation for another day. So we've got to recognize that we don't live in a society yet that prioritizes the village. Many of us don't have communities. And part of our role here is to see how we can create those communities. Some of us are, going to be creating communities in person. Some of us might be doing so virtually and finding ways to connect with others who have insights and who are going through similar things. So back to cycles and seasons. I got off on a little tangent there. Cycles and seasons. Number one, recognizing that as a woman, you have a cycle that is not a consistent energy every single day. And considering that as you structure your business, considering that in how you schedule your work with clients, considering that when you bring on other team members who also are women, and finding ways to create space. Because for us, space is where creativity and innovation can come forth. But if we just go about trying to use the same consciousness that exists in the corporate space, well, that's why many of us left, right? Like that's why many of us, it's hard for me to say that I left because yes, I was working in corporate, but was I really? I was so young. I don't know. Anyway, the point is if we we left because we wanted something different. So we have to shift our consciousness and deconstruct a lot of the thinking that led to how corporate entities are structured now. I also am just really excited at some point in the future to work with corporate entities to figure out ways to restructure their systems, their workflows, their teams, etc., in a way that allows for energetic alignment. Again, another tangent. But make room for your cycles. So make sure that you are not putting a ton of stuff on your plate on your cycle. Try to find a way to structure your business so that week is a light week for you, especially if you need to be, forward facing. Don't launch on that week unless that gives you energy. The other piece is seasons, right? So there's seasons that are within a year, right? So notice that probably in the winter, you're going to feel a little bit more slower, a little bit more sluggish, a little bit more introspective. And in the spring and in the summer, you're going to feel more energized, right? So how can you structure your business to make room for that energy, right? How can you leverage that? Oh, okay. In these 6 months of the year, I'm going to feel this increase. And then maybe that's when I'm going to be creating the most. And then maybe the other 6 months, not that you never sell, but maybe it's more on, refining your systems and your operations and maximizing fulfillment and relationships, building out referrals, that sort of thing. Work with your cycles and seasons. Maybe at some point I'll pull my training out of your quantum business and teach that, because it is extremely helpful when you start doing that. The third, if you are a high achiever, if you are analytical and logical, then you really got to prioritize play. Now, we've been taught that if it isn't making you money, if it isn't productive in the moment, that it's not valuable. And that is bullshit. When you allow yourself to play without attachments, whether that's playing a sport, whether that's singing, whether that's painting, whatever that is for you, whatever play is for you. And bonus points if you create a business that feels like play, or maybe not all the time, but a lot of the time feels like play, you will find that that energy trickles over into other places in your business. You will experience less stuckness, less feeling stagnant. You will be able to access creative and innovative solutions. So actually prioritize play. Actually put that on the calendar. Don't just let that be a, well, if I have time for it type of thing. And you can play with your kids too. Like that's still, as long as it's a kind of play that does light you up. Because honestly, like full transparency, I mom like a general. I mom like, okay, what resources do you need? I got that. And of course I teach. So I let my husband play with my son more than anything. If we play, it's going to be something like Just Dance. Like we're going to dance, or we're going to sing, although he isn't super into singing. So anyway, the next thing that I think is really important, it's one of the things I work with clients the most on, is mastering boundaries. You will have to let go of people-pleasing tendencies as a coping mechanism. And this one's very hard because if you're a high achiever, you likely got where you are by some form of people-pleasing to it. Not everyone, but it is very prevalent where you just said yes to everything and that got you to a certain level of success. So you think that your next level requires you saying yes to more, and you only have so much capacity. You only have so much time. You can't say yes to everything. And even by saying yes to everything, sometimes you are saying yes to things that are creating a reality that isn't desirable for you. So really aligning what you are saying yes to with your values and your priorities now, knowing that, again, those seasons, you might be in a different season, even 6 months from now, and being okay with that. I think the secret to my success and being able to have created a 7-figure business and, have a great team and be on some of the most incredible stages and media platforms and all of that. Part of that has been because I am not putting a ton of pressure to be Oprah Winfrey right now. Number one, Oprah doesn't have kids, but also knowing that at some point I will have even more free time to quote unquote do all of the things. But right now in this season of my life, I'm homeschooling. Homeschooling's one of my top priorities. Homeschooling, our diet, like what we eat really matters to me. Our space also really matters to me. And so I have to look at all of the opportunities that come in from an abundance mindset, knowing that there are plenty of opportunities and really only saying yes to opportunities that align with what my values and my priorities are right now. Now, someday, full transparency, I had Aiden really young. So I'm going to be, he'll be 16 in 5 years. I'll be 40, right? That reality looks very different. I don't know completely how, but I do imagine that I have even more flexibility because he has more independence at that point. And every year he gets more independence. And then we're dealing with other types of challenges, right? The challenges that come with growing up. But know that there are seasons for everything. Women have been told, like, you can have it all. And I do believe that you can, but also seeing your career, the trajectory of your career, and putting less pressure on yourself to have to do all the things right now will actually create greater levels of success, because you will be doing the things that are aligned, doing the things that you have an ample amount of energy for, versus trying to do all of the things. And that will make you even more effective. That's literally been my secret sauce to success. So that's the whole doing less thing is not just like do less to do less. It's no, uncover what your zone of excellence and your zone of genius are, and prioritize being in your zone of genius as much as possible, and taking off things, saying no to the things that are in your zone of incompetence and your zone of competency. It's a whole other thing. Maybe I should do something on all of those different zones. Let me know. DM me if you would love to hear about finding your genius and navigating your potential, really unlocking your full potential. The last thing that I'm going to add here, little bonus tip, is to schedule regular unplugging, regular disconnecting, especially if you are an introvert. I'm an introvert. I require a lot of time and space to myself. If I don't schedule it, it doesn't happen. And it becomes one of the last things on my list, like if I get to it. Now, going back to what I said about having a great partner, but also in how I've communicated with him, me having that time is a non-negotiable. If you do not have a partner like that, number one, there are ways to navigate how you show up in the relationship, because a relationship is a two-party system, right? There's a lot that I have worked with my female entrepreneur clients with on being able to receive what support they need in a relationship. And also, if you are not in a partnership right now, if you are a single mom, there's also still ways that can happen, right? That can look like, okay, what is your support system like? Is there family around? Is there not family around? Are there things like, depending on how old your kids are, we would leverage things like around here are, oh my gosh, what are they called? It's like, they have like indoor trampolines and like bouncy houses and stuff. Every once in a while, like once or twice a month on a Friday night, they would have these like kid drop-offs, and your kid gets to bounce and play and blah, 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 and have a babysitter. And you would get 3 hours, right? 3 or 4 hours. Use that time to unplug. Don't use that time to work. Use that time to literally unplug, disconnect, turn off the phone. Well, don't turn off the phone because, there might be an emergency, but you get what I'm saying, right? So really finding ways to allow yourself to receive support. We have to let ourselves receive support and get very creative in how we do so, especially if we are going to raise the next generation, if we are going to create businesses and be in careers that are changing the trajectory of humanity. It starts with us embodying that. It starts with us literally finding ways to work through some of the patterns that have shown up. A few weeks ago, we enrolled some new clients in Ascension, and one of our new members said that she was so struck by the fact that my son came in on a video. It was like a recording that she was watching, and I didn't have my team edit it out. In fact, I never have my team edit that out. And also, if anyone does anything live with me and, he's 11 years old, ADHD, impulsive, gets very excited. And so sometimes he interrupts and I don't edit that out because from my perspective, the idea that children are not allowed to be children, that professionalism means only one side of us, only one aspect of us is allowed to be in a space is ridiculous. To me, the aspect of me that is a mother adds so much benefit in how I see the world, in how I navigate the world, and on and on and on. And there are many cultures where children are just around. Children are a part of life. They benefit from that experience, but also we benefit. And any of my clients, whether they know it or not, are getting a benefit by, number one, being able to witness that. But also we have a level of expectation that the world should be the way that we want it and the way that we expect it to be. And little moments like that create opportunity for us to work through our ideas of control, our ideas of, okay, what is professional, our ideas of our ability to tolerate, right? I see so much stuff happening right now about, being child free and you're the ones who had the kids. I don't want to have to deal with that. Not saying that anyone's ever said this to me, but part of that is coming from a society where we really struggle to tolerate things that are not the way that we want and expect them to be. But that is where growth happens. That is how connection, everybody's disconnected. Well, part of why we're disconnected is because we have these patterns and we don't realize that that is showing up in our reality. So that creates opportunity for us to work through various things. This went a bit longer than I planned, but I'm glad that you stayed through until the end. I hope that this gave you some insight. Of course, there's so much more that I could go in on this. If this is something that you'd love to learn more about, love to explore, I would be happy to do so. Just DM me on Instagram at theroyalshaman and let me know your questions. And I'd be happy to create an episode really speaking more in depth on this topic. Anyways, I'll see you next time. Bye.